If you like storytime vibes, hit subscribe and let's dive in together.
I never thought a single joke could change the way I looked at someone forever. But that night, it did. It was supposed to be harmless. Just dinner, wine, laughter. One of those rare evenings where the world feels light again, where you forget how tired you've been pretending to be fine. Lena sat across from me, her laughter soft but contagious. We'd known each other for months, coworkers who'd somehow become friends who talked too much, texted too late, and laughed a little too easily. I told myself it was nothing, just good company. But deep down, I knew there was something dangerously comforting about her presence, like she saw through the parts of me I tried to keep hidden. That night, everything felt easy. The wine loosened our words, the music filled the pauses, and for the first time in a long time, I felt alive. We teased each other endlessly. Her terrible movie choices, my obsession with baseball stats. It was harmless fun until she said it. Her tone was light, playful, but her words, they hit too close. Your girlfriend must have the patience of a saint to deal with you. She laughed after saying it. I smiled too for a second, until something in my chest cracked open, because the truth was, she didn't anymore. My girlfriend hadn't been patient for a long time. She barely looked at me these days. We'd become strangers sharing the same bed, breathing the same air, but living separate lives. And somehow, Lena's joke made me realize just how broken things had become. The smile on my face faded before I could stop it. I tried to play it off, but the silence that followed was brutal. She looked at me, confused, maybe even guilty. I wanted to tell her it was fine, that I wasn't upset, but what came out instead was the truth, raw and unplanned. Yeah, I said quietly. She used to. And in that moment, the laughter died, not just between us, but inside me. The silence that followed her joke felt louder than any noise I'd ever known. It filled the space between us, heavy and uncomfortable, pressing against the air like fog that refused to lift. Lena's smile faltered. She must have realized she'd hit something raw, something she wasn't meant to touch. She looked down, then back at me. Ethan, I didn't mean... I stopped her with a small shake of my head. You don't have to explain, I said quietly. Sometimes the truth slips out through someone else's mouth. I tried to smile, to make it easier for her, but even I could feel how hollow it was. It wasn't her fault. She didn't know. Hell, most days even I tried not to know, because acknowledging it meant admitting that my relationship was dying, that the woman I used to dream about now barely looked up from her phone when I walked into the room. For a moment, neither of us said anything. The music from the restaurant hummed in the background, a melody that no longer matched the mood. My chest felt tight, like there wasn't enough air to go around. I wanted to say something, anything, to bring the laughter back, to erase that awful pause, but the words wouldn't come. Lena's eyes softened. She reached out, her hand hovering just an inch from mine before she pulled it back. I'm sorry, she whispered, and I wanted to tell her it was okay, that she didn't need to carry my sadness too. But what came out instead was a sigh. A long, tired sigh I hadn't realized I'd been holding for months. The waiter came by to clear our glasses. We both murmured polite thank yous, pretending the world hadn't just shifted. When we finally stood to leave, the night felt colder than when we'd arrived. The city lights blurred in the distance, and even the hum of traffic seemed distant, like everything was holding its breath. Outside, under the soft glow of a streetlight, I shoved my hands into my coat pockets and asked quietly, You ever laugh so hard with someone that you forget why you were sad? She nodded, eyes glistening under the light. Yeah, I said softly, a broken smile tugging at my lips. That was nice, while it lasted. And then I walked away before she could answer, because I knew if I stayed, I might never be able to. 3 days passed before I heard from her again. No memes, no late night texts, no how's your day messages, just silence. I told myself it didn't matter, that it was just one awkward dinner, but every time my phone buzzed, I found myself hoping it was her. Pathetic, right? A grown man waiting for a message that probably shouldn't mean anything. Then, on the fourth morning, it came. Can we talk? No emojis, no explanation, just 3 words that somehow made my heart race. We decided to meet at the park halfway between our apartments. It was a cold, gray afternoon, the kind of weather that made the world feel quiet, almost suspended. I got there early, pacing near the lake, my breath visible in the air. When I finally saw her walking toward me, something in my chest tightened. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey," I replied. My voice came out lower than I intended. "Thanks for coming." "I wasn't sure if I should," she admitted, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I didn't want things to be weird." "Too late," I said, forcing a small laugh. It broke the ice a little. She smiled faintly, then looked out toward the water. "I've been thinking about that night," she said. "So have I answered. For a while, neither of us spoke. The wind rustled the trees, and the sound of kids playing somewhere far off filled the silence. Then she turned to me. "Ethan, what happened between us? It wasn't just about the joke, was it?" I hesitated. "No, it wasn't." Her eyes searched mine, waiting. I sat down on the bench, elbows on my knees. "You just reminded me of something I didn't want to face," I said finally. "That I've been pretending things are fine when they're not." "With her?" she asked quietly. I nodded. "We barely talk anymore. We barely touch. Every conversation feels like a transaction, like we're checking boxes just to get through the day. And when you made that joke, it was like you said out loud what I've been afraid to admit." She sat beside me, her shoulder brushing mine. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "I know," I said. "But maybe I needed to be hurt. Maybe that's the only way I'd finally admit something was broken." The silence returned, but this time it didn't feel sharp. It felt necessary, healing even. After a long pause, she whispered, "You ever meet someone at the wrong time?" I looked at her, and for a moment, everything around us faded. The wind, the noise, the ache. "Yeah," I said softly, "all the time." Lena broke the silence first. "I keep thinking I should have just kept my mouth shut that night," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "It was just a stupid joke. I didn't mean to make you feel exposed." "You didn't make me feel exposed," I said, shaking my head. "You just said out loud what I already knew." She frowned softly. "That you're unhappy?" "That I've been living half a life," I admitted. "Pretending to be okay because it's easier than starting over." Her eyes met mine, searching, steady. "Do you still love her?" I hesitated. The answer should have come easily, but it didn't. "I think I love the idea of her," I said slowly. "Who she used to be, who we were, but not who we are now." Lena looked down at her hands. "That's a hard thing to admit." "Yeah," I sighed. "Took me long enough." For a moment, we just sat there, side by side, the wind brushing through the bare branches above us. The air smelled faintly of winter, cold, clean, honest. I wanted to reach for her hand, but I didn't, because I knew once I did, it would mean crossing a line that neither of us could uncross. "You know," she said after a while, her voice barely above a whisper, "I used to think connection meant excitement, butterflies, adrenaline, all that. But lately, I think it's just about feeling safe enough to be yourself." "Yeah," I said quietly. "That's what it felt like with you." Her head turned sharply toward me, her eyes wide. "Ethan?" I smiled faintly, a little broken, a little honest. "Don't worry. I'm not saying this to make things harder. I just needed to say it out loud once." She exhaled shakily. "You think saying it makes it easier?" "No," I said. but pretending not to feel it makes it worse. Lena's lips parted, but no words came out. I could see the conflict in her eyes, wanting to reach out, wanting to pull back, not sure which would hurt less. Finally, she said softly, "If things were different, do you think we—" "Yes," I interrupted gently. "I think we could have been something good." Her breath hitched. "That almost makes it worse, doesn't it?" "It does," I said, "because now I'll spend the rest of my life wondering what it would have felt like if we met at the right time." She laughed quietly, the sound trembling. "You and your timing." "Yeah," I smiled sadly. "Timing's everything." The sun was setting, painting the park in muted gold and shadow, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel the weight of pretending. I felt raw, yes, but real. She stood up first. "What are you going to do now?" I looked at her, memorizing the way the light touched her face. "I don't know yet," I said honestly, "but whatever I do, I can't keep living halfway." She nodded, tears glimmering in her eyes. "Then promise me one thing," she whispered. "Whatever you choose, don't disappear like none of this mattered." "I won't," I said softly. "It mattered, maybe more than it should have." After that day in the park, we didn't see each other again for a while. Not because something went wrong, but because we both knew if we saw each other too soon, we might not walk away this time. Life moved on. At least that's what I told myself. Work, sleep, repeat. The same rhythm, the same silence. But sometimes, when I passed that same cafe we used to sit in, I could still hear her laughter echoing faintly in my mind. It was strange, how something that once filled the room now existed only as a memory that refused to fade. A few weeks later, I finally did what I'd been avoiding for months. I sat down with my girlfriend, ex-girlfriend now, and told her the truth, that we'd stopped loving each other long before either of us was brave enough to admit it, that we both deserved something real, something honest. She didn't argue. She just nodded slowly, tears gathering at the corner of her eyes. "I guess I knew," she whispered. "I was just waiting for one of us to say it." There wasn't anger, just sadness. A quiet, mutual understanding that sometimes things don't end because of betrayal or hatred, but simply because they no longer fit. When I left that apartment, I didn't feel free. Not exactly. But I felt clean. Like I'd finally stopped lying to myself. That night, I went for a walk. The city was quiet, the air sharp with winter's edge. I found myself walking toward the park without meaning to, and there she was, Lena, sitting on the same bench, bundled in her coat, looking up at the sky like she was searching for something she'd lost. She looked surprised when she saw me. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey," I smiled, small but real. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Me neither," she said. "Guess this place feels different when you're alone." We both laughed quietly. It wasn't the same kind of laughter as before. It was gentler, like an echo of what used to be. "I ended things," I said after a pause, "with her." Lena's eyes flickered with something. Relief, maybe sadness, maybe both. "How do you feel?" I thought for a moment. "Empty," I said. "But the kind of empty that makes room for something new." She nodded, her lips trembling into a faint smile. "That's the best kind of empty." We sat there, not talking much, just breathing in the cold air together. It felt peaceful, like two chapters finally closing in sync. When I stood to leave, she looked up at me. "So, is this goodbye?" I took a breath. "Yeah," I said softly, "but the kind that doesn't hurt." She smiled, and for the first time, it reached her eyes. "Take care of yourself, Ethan." "You too," I said. I walked away without looking back, and for the first time in a long time, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt like healing, because sometimes goodbye isn't the end of something broken, it's the beginning of being whole again.